and welcome to Your City in Action. I'm your host, Marnie Ryan. Today on the program, I have the wonderful opportunity of getting to know our Chief of Police, Officer Nelson. Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, thank you.
Well, thank you for coming. Now, I must say, you have a really cool title. You're a rather important person in our community. How does that feel?
I've enjoyed it. I've kind of worked my whole career to get here. I've been a police officer for 30 years now, so it's been a fun ride.
Awesome. Now, you're not a native Salinan, or you are?
I am not. I've lived in Midwest my whole life, primarily Nebraska, Missouri, for about a minute in Iowa, but all Midwest, and now I'm in Kansas.
Wow. So do you mind me asking, what made you want to come to Salina?
Well, I worked at the Columbia, Missouri Police Department for 21 years. I was eligible to retire. I chose to retire, and I started looking around for police chief jobs, primarily in the Midwest, and came across Salina, did my research, homework, liked the community, liked the size of the department, size of the town, and so I applied, and here I am.
That is so cool. You were going to retire, and you came here. That's awesome.
Yeah,
you must really love what you do.
I do love what I do. I've wanted to be a police chief for probably 15 years and tried to prepare myself to become a chief, and it's worked out great so far.
When you were a young man, did you grow up thinking this is the path you were going to take?
Depends on your definition of young. I decided in 9th grade that I was going to be a police officer. My dad was a car salesman, my mom was a teacher, and I knew I didn't want to do either of those. And for whatever reason, I'm not exactly sure why, but in 9th grade, I decided I was going to be a police officer. So that's what I did.
Wow. How would you say your profession has changed from when you first started to where you're at now as chief of police?
It's changed dramatically, I'd say primarily in technology. The technology we have available today, it's almost an overload, but the amount of information that is accessible to the officers today almost immediately, that's why I say sometimes it's like you're overloaded with information. That's been the biggest change. And the ability to keep up with technology, to afford technology, as far as a manager speaking, that's probably been the biggest changes.
How different do you think it's been in your experience from being an officer to chief? What is that like? I mean, I'm sure that's not just an easy answer, but as someone who knows nothing about police work,
it's not easy. But management to some extent is management. I actually was over some divisions in Columbia because it's a bigger city that had more people than I'm actually over now. Just bigger city, bigger divisions. So I think it prepared me well to do this. I enjoy leading. I enjoy moving us hopefully in the right direction. It's just being responsible for a lot of good people, which makes my job a lot easier, and surrounding yourself with good people. That's how you succeed.
That's so cool to hear. It always impresses me when people like yourself are so dedicated and you're sacrificing your own personal safety every single day. And it just, as someone who's a little selfish of a person, I can't imagine doing that. I mean, is it just who you are? I mean, is it a conscious decision? I mean,
I think you're aware of it, but you really, in my 30 years plus, I don't think I've ever been afraid to go to work. Have I been afraid sometimes during certain situations which involved personal danger to myself or others? Certainly. But you don't go to work being afraid, or you probably wouldn't do this job. You're aware of the dangers. You prepare the best you can to be able to handle those types of situations. But it's just something I've always wanted to do, and I know with it comes danger, but I accept the odds of me coming home each night.
Silly question. It's not serious at all in its nature, but do you like the song Bad Boys? Yeah.
That's what. I don't know if you're dating. I don't know if you're dating yourself or I am. But that's an old song.
I'm thinking of that reality show, right?
A little burnout on it. It's been around for so long.
Yes.
But I don't mind it. It's the first time I heard it was, I guess, cute. But it's not worth welcome as far as I'm concerned. But
it is kind of old, isn't it?
It's very old. I remember hearing it in the 80s, late 80s. The cops hadn't been around for that long. It's true.
How do you think? I guess, and I apologize. I know this is probably not the most serious question, but when you see shows like that on TV, how true is that to what you do? And I understand the location's different, like they're in bigger cities and so forth. But how do you think that represents law enforcement as a profession as a whole?
Well, the actual shows where they follow around the real cops, I think is about as real as can be. Now, occasionally you have both the officers and the citizens playing to the camera, and things maybe aren't quite the same. But as far as that's about as realistic as you can get, following the cops around with cameras. So that's realistic. You know, the other shows, the CSI shows, the fictional shows, those drive me crazy because people tend to believe that's what we do, and we solve crimes in a half hour or an hour, and there's DNA everywhere, and you know, we pick it up everywhere we go. It's just simply not true, and that's kind of frustrating. But the actual cop shows, about as real as can be.
That, you know, it is so interesting that our society has taken such a turn that we have such a desire to see that, you know. Again, I can't imagine. I guess, you know, a couple of years ago, somebody suggested to me, you know, do you guys have this or do we have this in Salina where the citizen can be, what is that called, the Citizen Academy? Is there something like that?
There is. It's actually occurring now. We're in the middle of it.
You are. What is that? I mean,
I don't remember if it's 10 or 11 weeks. I want to say 11 weeks, but it's for a few hours every one day a week. The citizens, whoever signs up, and I think we have 26 people in this class, from the county and the city, as long as they express interest and aren't, well, anyway, have an interest in police work. They truly can't have a record and such. But anyway, if they have an interest in seeing what we do, they see all the different facets of what we do on a daily basis. For example, they'll see the canine demonstration, they'll see a SWAT demonstration, they'll tour the buildings, both the Sheriff's Department and our department. It's just basically a way for them to see what we do on a daily basis. And I think it's a fantastic program because they had it where I came from too. We've never had anybody leave not thinking differently about the police because there's so many things we do, and they become the best ambassadors you can imagine. When people say really silly things about their police department, these folks will step up and say, that's not true. I learned this in the academy. So I think it's a fantastic program. We hadn't had one for like 8 years, but we just have one now going on.
That's impressive. I mean, is that typical? That's a pretty large size.
It is, and that's about the most we can handle, to be honest with you.
Oh,
because
I'm sure.
That's in one class, and you have to lead them around, like, say it's like herding cats, but I don't mean them personally.
I bet.
You have to get that many people trying to get into this place at this time. It does kind of tough, logistically speaking. But actually, they meet tonight out on our range. I'll be out there at 6 o'clock, and they're going to see a live fire of some of the weapons that we have. Folks are always interested in guns, or most folks, and anyway, they're going to do a live fire. They're not going to fire, but they're going to watch the officers shoot.
Do you find, and maybe this is too general of a question, and I can only relate to myself, I have a very, what I call a healthy fear or respect of people like yourself, you know, law officials, you know, people who enforce the law. Do you find that is common, or is that changing? Or is that hard to generalize? Maybe it's hard to generalize.
It is, but I guess I would discuss one thing. I absolutely do not want you to fear me or fear.
No, in a good way.
Don't fear the police officer. Respect us, and realize the average citizen is never going to have contact with a police officer short of if they're a victim of a crime. So I don't want, the only ones I want to fear the police are the criminals that are preying on the people. I don't mind if they fear us. That's fine with me. But I don't want the average citizen. I want us to be approachable. I want us to walk up to them and not have any fear, not thinking every time we have a contact is in a negative connotation, because it's not. It's just hard getting out there. I think things have changed dramatically over the years. The perception of what we do, who we are, because of social media, and every time we make a mistake, it's out there within seconds that, look, the cop just made a mistake again. And do we make mistakes? Absolutely. But
who doesn't?
Right.
But that's life.
I think folks are a little bit unforgiving if the police officer makes a mistake. But things have changed. The Citizens Academy is a perfect example of how we're trying to change people's perceptions of what we do and why we do it. There's really nothing we do short of maybe some very specialized things like buying dope, or if we have a barricaded subject on a SWAT call, what we do to get people out. Short of that, literally, there's nothing that I won't tell you how we do or what we do or why we do it. That's a pretty big change from when I first started 30 years ago. We didn't talk about anything. Now, basically, the transparency levels increased greatly, and it should have, but we'll tell you anything as far as what we do and why we do it.
Yeah, I've never truly, I've never had a negative ever. I mean, I've always been approached with not that I ever have done this, but sometimes maybe like our little alarm at Access, somebody named Marnie in the 9.5 years I've been here maybe might have hit the wrong code or something. And I have some very nice, patient officers who come. I mean, they're always super nice. I'm sure they're like, yikes, this chick again, but they're very kind always. And I've never really, truly, I've never had a bad experience. And through Access and just different dealings, I can honestly say I've never had a negative, the stereotypes or whatever that those are. I've never personally had that. And so I am the queen of repeat, but I cannot fathom, and I'm grateful that your profession willingly sacrifices your own safety for everyday common people that you will never probably meet, never know, and without thinking, it's your job. I cannot relate to it. It's amazing to me, and I'm so grateful for you guys, because, you would not want me on the force, trust me.
I appreciate
Ever.
I appreciate that, because especially the part that you've never had a negative contact with police officers.
Never.
And
Never.
I would ask that you go forth and tell everybody that, because,
Yes.
because if you have one negative spot, you tell everybody, but if you have positive, it's not quite out there as much.
Yeah, and that's a shame.
It is a shame. I mean, it is what it is, but I would love for folks, part of it's a PR, maybe we should do better at our PR, I'm not sure, but because the negative part, we don't have to do anything, it's already out there. Maybe we, as a police agency department nationwide, should do a better job of saying this is what we do on a daily basis.
Well, really, and I think sometimes people just definitely take it for granted. I mean, without question, if there's an accident, if you think somebody's tampering with your home, whatever you call, you guys come regardless. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if you're having a bad day, if you're in a bad mood. It doesn't matter. You come. We're
called for so many things that aren't police related.
I bet.
And the reason is because we'll answer the phone, and we're open 24/7. So the amount of calls we get is pretty phenomenal, actually.
I'm sure it is. How many officers are on the force?
Well, we have 72 now. I'm allotted.
Wow.
Is that more or less than you thought?
Way more. I had no idea.
I actually need more. If I could hire them, we'd have 85. That's how many I can.
Really? In our tiny town? Wow.
85. Well, we're pushing 50,000, and actually, statistics you can do either way. Actually, we're a little bit low on what we should have, but
really,
it's based on the population. But again, you can do either side of that. You can say we have too many, not enough. I think with 85, if we ever get to have 85 officers here, once we get to that staffing level, I think that'll be fine.
I'm truly surprised. I had no idea we had
How
that many officers.
How many do you think we had?
I don't know, but that's I don't know. I know we had enough. I never thought we didn't have enough, but I'm just surprised we had that many. I don't know.
I got to ask you a question.
You can ask me anything.
Why did you think we had enough? I mean, what gave you the thought that they have enough?
I don't feel like Salina is that big of a town. I know we're kind of medium-sized, but we don't have it. From a novice point of view, I don't think we have that big of a crime issue.
We do not. That's true.
And so whether you look on the news or whatever, whether they have the bookings or what have you, thankfully that list isn't super large. Thank goodness, and so really. Most of the time when I hear sirens, it's usually like, from what I see anyway, it's usually like fire, EMTs and stuff, or accidents or something. So
right.
I guess just being naive of, not know anything about crime in our community, I didn't feel like we have that big of a crime issue in Salina.
And I wasn't trying to infer that we do, because we don't.
Yeah.
But I'm saying part of the reason maybe because we have a very proactive professional police department. I mean, it might be because you do have the size we have. We don't have the crime that other cities are.
Which is awesome. Again, I've through the years and with Access, I've gotten to know some officers very well, and especially like the school resource officers. Those are probably the officers that I see the most, in addition to the officers that get to be at the city commission meetings, because every Monday.
Every Monday, that's right. They look forward to that.
Yes, I know, it's a good time, but. It's just nice to live in a community. I mean, my father, and I shouldn't be saying this, but bless his heart, he still does not lock his car. And it's in his garage. I'm like, Dad, even the slide is safe. Come on now, what are you doing? But he just has that confidence, whether it's confidence or whatever, But I just, where I live in this community in the time I've been here, I've not known too many people that have had any, thankfully, unfortunate, negative crime or anything of that nature. And even where Access is located, we right on 9th Street. Right. I mean, we're so close. You're our neighbors, and so is the fire department, and we hear sirens a lot. But I mean, there's thankfully not too much that I ever hear of. So that's a great thing.
If I compare it to when I worked for 21 years, this is a very, very safe community. I mean, comparatively speaking. The town I came from is a little bit bigger, but still, this is a very safe community.
That's awesome.
Yes.
What do you enjoy the most about your job?
Actually, coming to work every day, to be honest with you.
Really? That's so cool.
I love coming to work. I love hearing great ideas coming to me and trying to make it happen. And if we can't make it happen, explain why, and we'll try again next year. But I love trying to move the department forward, just to be as professional as we can. And A big part of that is staffing, not to go back to staffing, but literally, if can you imagine 13 people down, it's like 12 or 13%, I think, or somewhere around that, as far as down what we really need. If I can get to that level, the things we can do will be phenomenal, and I'm looking forward to that. But if I hired you tomorrow as a police officer...
Which you would not want to do.
But if I did, how long do you think it would take before you're actually by yourself drive around in a brand new Ford Explorer? By yourself, how long?
I can't imagine how much training it would take.
How many weeks would it take? Before you're by yourself?
Dear God, I hope at least a year.
No, 29 weeks.
Really?
29 weeks.
Okay, well, me, it would take longer. I wouldn't even pass the academy, like whatever the entrance would be like, but wow.
But it's, that's 4 months. So literally, if I hired you tomorrow, you really wouldn't be a whole lot of good to me or the citizens of Salina for 4 months, because that's when you'd actually be by yourself and not have a field training officer or not be in the academy. So it's a very long process. I mean, it should be, because what we do is obviously, we have the ability to arrest, to take away your liberties, to take your life if necessary. So there should be a lot of training in front of that, and there is. But my point for that was how long it takes to actually get these officers up to speed where they're an asset to the police force. 29 weeks.
Wow. Was it like that when you first became an officer?
No, I've told people before. When I started, they called us 3-week wonders, because it was it was 3 weeks, 15 days of training, and you were gun-toting, able to arrest officer in Missouri. And that was that was 1984.
Wow.
So it went from 3 weeks to the Kansas Law Enforcement Training Center is, I think, 14 weeks. So they've added 11 weeks to it. Actually, it's state by state. Missouri for a while was pretty far down there, but it's getting up there now. But it went from 3 weeks to 14, 15 weeks. That's how much more training they require now than what they used to.
Is there, due to technology changes, is there constant training that training that the officers and yourself have to be a part of?
If we get something new, certainly. And it's not so much the cost, the initial technology, as I'm sure you know, but it's the storage, like for all the cameras that are all the rave now. We've had cameras for years, but the storage to store that information, and you think about how much you could actually record in any given day, and the maintenance costs, that's where you get into some money. The cameras that the officers are wearing, they almost give them away because they know you sign a contract to store all that data and for the maintenance fee. And it's just very, very costly. But it's what you have to do it. I mean, if we're going to keep up with what a lot of other departments, progressive departments, are doing, we have to. We don't have to have everything, but we definitely need to have the basics, and I would like to have above the basics, actually.
In your mind, what do you feel makes a really good officer?
Primarily, I'd say the core values, the integrity, honesty. They have to be there. The desire to help people has to be there too. But literally, the core values have to be sound. That's why I like the Midwest. I think the Midwest has different core values than maybe the East or West Coast. Better values, I believe. Personally, it's a biased opinion, but I do believe that. But definitely you have to have the ability to deal with people. I mean, most police officers are not introverts. You really can't be an introvert and be a police officer. You have to like working with people. You do have to realize there's going to be a lot of people that either don't like you or portray like they don't like you, and you have to be able to deal with that. Cynicism is something that you fight literally on a daily basis as a police officer. You have to realize that not everybody doesn't like you, because there's a whole bunch of people that love and respect what we do. Unfortunately, we probably don't hear as much. I've called them the silent majority before. They don't say anything, really. You know they're there, but they don't say much. But boy, the negative people are everywhere saying how bad you are. You got to focus on the positive, not the negative. So,
how is that? I would always, and again, I'm assuming because I have no idea. I mean, bless my heart, I wanted to be Oprah growing up, so I know nothing about law enforcement. I again have a great respect for it, and I'm so thankful for it. But how is it challenging sometimes as an officer? Because deep down you're doing good, you're helping people, but I bet sometimes it would be challenging because, for right, wrong, or whatever, and maybe not right, but perception sometimes isn't always kind, or the media isn't always kind, and you guys are putting your lives on the line all the time. I mean, is that a challenge for officers? I mean, I would assume so, but I don't know.
It absolutely is, and I think that's why you have to, when you're not being a police officer, you want to be out there, and whatever your hobbies are, try to have non-cop friends so you get other realistic as far as what's going on. I certainly have outside hobbies. I love football. I love riding a Harley. There's things I like. I love being with my family. just have a healthy, when you're not working, have a healthy lifestyle. I think it helps a lot. And realize again that not everybody is like who you deal with. If you think about it, all we deal with, generally speaking, in any given day is people who something bad has happened, or somebody who needs arrested, or an evil person, whatever. But if that's all you handle every day, at some point it can become, you get a little bit cynical. But I think as long as you're consciously aware that, hey, I had a bad day, and then you go home and just let it all go, or you try to. That helps.
That's awesome. You know, again, it always amazes me, people that just are so giving naturally, and I think you have to be that way in some aspect to be an officer. It just amazes me. I could never do it. You know, be glad I'm not in the academy. I guess real quickly, it's funny, you know, you answer all these wonderful questions. You have these great answers, and then it pops. I have like 30 million questions, but I know we just have a little bit of time. But do you have a lot of people that apply for the academy?
Apply to be a police officer. That's just a part you have to do to be a police officer. Not as many as I'd like. And this generation is quite a bit different than when I came up. Now, every generation probably says that. But I think police officers, by and large, unfortunately, are not held in the same regard, have the same respect as what they did in the 80s and 70s and 60s, and that's unfortunate. And I'm not blaming anybody for that. That's just how it is. A lot of the youngsters want to start out, they want to be CSI people day one. Well, you can't really do that unless you've been, generally speaking, everything you learn about being a police officer, you learn on the streets. You don't learn being a detective, you don't learn, you learn all this on the streets, and then you graduate to becoming a detective or a canine officer or a traffic officer. But it all starts, a lot of them seem like they don't want to start at the beginning. They want to start somewhere in the middle, or can you hire me as a sergeant? No, I can't.
No.
I cannot. But that's the kind of different philosophy from when I started. People are in a lot bigger hurry, I guess I would say it right now. If anything, I would love for this show, and I appreciate you having me on. Boy, I'd love for people to see this and want to be a Salina police officer. That'd be fantastic.
Definitely. We
certainly are. We're constantly hiring. We test every month.
Do you? Do you? And is the testing pretty demanding?
It's a written test, and then a psychological test, and then what's called a computer voice stress analyzer test. I have a couple interviews there. Actually, the last step is when I talk to you and see what I think. But we streamlined it because we're really trying to get people hired. We haven't dumbed it down. We just try to compress it so it doesn't take as long. Because not to leave people hanging out there. If you want to be a police officer in Salina, we'll get you through the process as fast as we can. If you could go back in time, would you do it again? Absolutely. That's so cool. I love what I do. I've probably said it too many times, but the only difference between 30 years ago from then and now is I still love what I do, but now I know what I'm doing. That's so well said. That's awesome. It does make a difference. I thought I knew what I was doing 30 years ago, but didn't we all? Yeah, that's true. That's true. I know. Aging is an interesting thing. Where the body may fail, thank goodness for the mind, right? That's right. That's good. That's true. Well, I thank you so much for coming on the program. I always say this program is great for me because I always learn so much about our community and people like yourself who just serve so selflessly. It's so awesome to see that, and it's so encouraging to hear that you love your job. I think sometimes people don't hear that enough, and it's very encouraging, and how important. You're such a huge asset to our community, and I'm so glad you're here in 9 months, still a little new. That's very new. And gotta give a shout out to my fellow Missourian, right? Hey. We're Tigers. Us Missouri folks gotta stick together because we're in Kansas country. That's true. That's true. But I thank you so much for coming on the program, and I hope you come back. Sure. I'll be welcome to come back. Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for watching.